Hi, we're going to hear Lori hear her recovery story, and she has a few months of abstinence, and we're very glad she's here, and thank you very much for agreeing to do your story. Lori?
Thank you. I'm a little nervous. Um, let's see. I'm Laurie. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with codependency and compulsive overeating. And so I wanted to start out a little creatively, so I dug out a poem I wrote several years ago, just to start. Who am I? I am from dust. I am from clay. I am from the potter's wheel. His hands, his sweat, his tears, his blood. I am from sorrow and joy and love. So, history. I was born to a wonderful family. My mom struggled with eating too much. One of my earliest memories was of her going to weigh in at a program she was in. And being a nurse, she had easy access to diuretics. And so she wasn't doing so well in a week. And she took some diuretics so she could weigh in and show a loss. But of course, I realized many years later that was an she would constantly have to do the same thing in order to continue to look like she was losing and lose. So just a glimpse of mom. She was wonderful. But my mom and my grandmother both struggled with being obese. And I look, my body shape is just about exactly the same. So I grew into my mother who grew into her mother. There was always food, Coca-Cola around. I've gotten into the habit over the years of really liking to have something sweet after a meal, and I am trying to overcome that. So, back in 1998, I started that protein power diet and did really well on it. I lost 60 pounds and kept it off for about 5 years. Did the maintenance really well. My cholesterol went down, my weight went down, my blood pressure went down, although I didn't have blood pressure problems. And then my mom passed, and suddenly I couldn't do it anymore. And I had always denied I was an emotional eater, but I had no willpower. So looking back, I would think denial was the game at the time. And then a few years ago, 12 years ago, I started coming to recovery at Cokesbury here. My husband told me he was an addict. And that was his first day of recovery, the day I found out. And so I felt like I'd been betrayed and hurt. And I came to believe through the recovery program that I was a codependent person. Meaning, and I don't know if you are familiar with codependency, essentially a codependent leans on somebody else to determine how they feel about themselves. So I tried a lot of different ways to control other people in order to make myself feel better. You know, if my husband was okay, then I'm okay. And I didn't even realize my own wants and needs because I was always trying to please my husband or to get him to behave a certain way, and other people as well. One story about my codependency I used to tell in the family support group here is before I realized what was going on, we went to the zoo. My mom, my sister, my husband, and I, down in Miami. and it was a beautiful day, and my mom had a goal of seeing every animal in the zoo. So she would walk up, glance, walk, and so she was trying to race through the zoo, see everything in the zoo. My husband had the goal of really enjoying several different animals, but he didn't care if he saw everything in the zoo. And so I'm kind of stuck in between, not even realizing what's going on, and I am mad because my mom is going off and leaving us, and my husband won't keep up. And it didn't even occur to me how I wanted to enjoy the zoo. I just wanted everybody to stick together. And so, and instead of enjoying the day, I was just so mad the whole day, because looking back, I realized that was part of my codependence, is I was trying to control and get everybody on board, and that didn't belong to me. I should have figured out how I wanted to do the zoo, and we each did it the way we wanted to. So that's kind of what my codependency looked like, I joined OA 24 weeks ago, so I'm getting close to the 6 months. That's why I said this close when you said 6 months. How did I get to be a compulsive overeater? I'm not quite sure. There was the family history, but there wasn't like emotional abuse or anything like that. I'm a people pleaser, and I was the kid that always cleaned my plate, and I took pride in that, and I think that's part of it, because that's what I thought my parents wanted. They don't want to waste food. They want you to eat and be compliant, and I was. My sister, not at all. I learned to eat fast. School was set up so that you only had a few minutes in there. You'd spend a long time waiting to get into the cafeteria, and a long time waiting in line, and you only had a few minutes. And so if you were going to have a clean plate, you had to eat fast. And I have kept up with that habit, and I keep telling myself, slow down, put your fork down, and that lasts for 2 or 3 bites, and then I have to say it again, slow down, put your fork down. So I haven't mastered that yet. I think my triggers are any food that I deserve. So I've done a lot of volunteer work over the years in different places, and that often comes with a meal. And so because I'm volunteering, I deserve it. So I eat whatever's there. And of course, easy food is a trigger. If I'm hungry, I go for whatever is easy and fast. And social food, I wrote on here, almost every social event centers around food. And most of the social food is not the best for you, because everybody wants to have the most delicious thing. And I've always enjoyed baking things and sharing those, and that's not on the plan anymore either. And then, of course, I hate to waste food. So, but I joined that 12-step program 12 years ago with family support here at Recovery at Cokesbury. I started going to Al-Anon because of my husband's addiction. And just to put my story in a little context, my husband's been in recovery ever since that day, so it's almost 12 years for him. And I'm working on, my 12 years of recovering from my codependency. And so I slip back into it now and then. Not so much with my husband, but sometimes with coworker relationships and stuff. I think people ought to behave a certain way because it's polite, or I suddenly got self-conscious, sorry. So the 12-step program, I've taken the 12 steps classes 3 times. A couple of those were survey type classes, and one of them was a dig deep and work the 12-step program class. And I found that to be very helpful. I probably need to do another deep dig because it's been several years now. But I learned from that how to detach from other people so that I'm not being triggered, or so that my emotions are not tied to their behavior. So I've unhitched, I've detached from that. I've learned that my own wants and wishes are valuable, and I'm beginning to figure out what they are. For a long time, I didn't even know what I wanted. I just wanted other people to be happy. And so I've learned, even, making a decision about what movie we're going to see or what restaurant we're going to, it's okay for me to have an opinion and put it forward. So I'm learning that. And I'm beginning to learn what belongs to me and what doesn't. I used to own every problem I encountered. And a lot of those problems don't belong to me. And it would make everybody else nuts around me because I was trying to fix things. I was also looking for the magic words that would fix everything. You want to call somebody up and say, hey, did you think about it this way? That's not in my lane. I need to stay in my own lane there. So I'm doing better. So far, in my 24 weeks of Overeaters Anonymous, I've lost some weight, 15 pounds. I can climb the stairs without getting winded. I feel better physically. I feel better mentally, a little bit sharper. I don't get quite as tongue-tied as I used to. Whenever I was tired, well, even still, I tend to mumble or mix up my words or lose words. And so I've been doing that less now that I've lost a little bit of the weight and I'm eating better. Sugar really did make it worse. And emotionally and spiritually, I'm feeling a lot better too. So I have been working on my conscious contact with God, praying only for His will for me and the power to carry it out. So, I wanted to share some of the sayings that have helped me from 12-step programs over the years. For my codependency, the big one was, I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. I turned that into a mantra for several years whenever I was trying to go back into my codependent ways. I'd have to remind myself, this doesn't belong to me. In the first 12-step class I took, one of the girls there said, nothing changes if nothing changes. And that was the first time I'd heard that, but I thought, that's really deep. I used to think these were a little bit trite and surface level sayings, but the more I dig into the program, the more I realize these are really good sayings. The next one is, it's time. It's time to do something about this. And if I was going to be able to do it alone, I would have done it already. So, it's time. And then every single day, it's time. So, which is another saying, one day at a time, and do the next right thing. Sometimes I'm not 100% eating the right thing. I've not gone back to compulsiveness to overeat too much, but I couldn't resist that one serving of this or that one serving of that really I should have left off altogether. But I can do the next right thing instead of beating myself up about it. Look forward and keep doing the next right thing. So, I hope I'm not too boring. The tools that helped me, prayer, and my two favorite prayers are help me and thank you. Those are the best prayers in the whole world. My food diary, and I do a pretty good job on that most of the time, and sometimes I find myself having to go back a few days, and then I'm like, well, should I go back a few days, or should I just do the next right thing? But knowing that I'm intending to write something down helps me to resist it. Gratitude, and I'm very grateful for the group here, because I come in and I feel like I've got to be accountable to you guys and be truthful and honest. And so I'm very grateful that you're all here just for me. And there are some things I need to do more of or start doing. And one of those is eating slowly. Maybe if I've thought to myself, I ought to switch hands, and maybe that'll help me remember to eat slowly. Of course, I may have to change clothes afterward. Just an idea. I was trying to think, how am I going to make myself remember that? I do need to exercise more. I do need to reduce my portions. I've gone back to that protein power way of eating, so I know how much I can eat of things, but I tend to eat plenty of the protein and then watch all of the carbs. So I know that I also need to shrink the protein down and do a little bit better there. And I need to get a little bit more disciplined at reading the literature. I read it in fits and starts. And so those are the things I need to do better. So I don't mind at all if you say, hey, how are you doing with that literature? Or did you go for that walk today? That's perfectly fine with me. Probably after the meeting, since that's crosstalk. And then back to a little bit on my husband to put my story in perspective. My husband used to weigh 485 pounds. And he had the bariatric surgery 10 years ago. And he did very well with it. So he went down to about 230. And then he's hovered between 230 and 260 ever since. He's been doing pretty well. He's a tall guy, so he should have, he doesn't have to, he restricts what he eats, but he doesn't have to anymore because of the surgery. And so he's eating more of the things I'm not supposed to. But I've managed to mostly resist the temptation to eat some of that stuff that's laying around the house. So David is working as a recovery chaplain over at Cornerstone Recovery. We are writing a lot of songs together. And he's just finished some of the songs we wrote are on a recovery album. And so I wanted to share one of those to finish up my story, if that's okay with you. So this is one that I wrote. I was on work travel up at Princeton, so I think it made me smarter. And we are part of a songwriter challenge where they send out a prompt, which is a picture and some words, and you pick some element from the prompt. And there was a picture of some wolves in the background. And so we thought, well, maybe we can write a wolf song. And we knew of a parable that's been going around for years about two wolves that live inside of you. And so I kind of wrote that up in the lyrics, and David put it to music. And this is him singing it. So if I can figure out how to play it. So
sorry, I should have tested this before. I think that's stop, that must be play.
That's it. Pass these around, that's the lyrics if you want to see them.
They say we have two wolves hidden inside, always in battle, long for the ride. One wolf knows kindness, goodness, and peace. The other is bitter with hatred and greed. Hungry, hungry wolves, which do you believe? Hungry, hungry wolves,
Oh no.
which will you feed? Knocking in the air, balancing act. Only one will try, that's just a fact. Their battle goes on day after day. The one you feed the most will have its way. Hungry, hungry wolves, which do you believe? Hungry, hungry wolves, which will you feed? This story told many moons ago. Choose the wolf you want to grow. Hungry, hungry wolves, which do you believe? Hungry, hungry wolves, which will you feed? Which will you feed? Which will you feed?
Did you
That's
hear
it,
anything
thank you.
back up?
Hmm?
Did you